Across the endless Pacific, before the United States ever knew these islands, there was only water, wind, and the courage of those who dared to cross it. The name Hawaii was not born in maps or books, but in the rhythm of waves and the hearts of voyagers who trusted the stars to guide them. They carried with them more than tools and food. They carried memory, the story of a homeland whispered through generations. And when they first set foot on these volcanic shores, they gave it a name that carried their ancestors' breath. That name was not simply a word, it was a journey. And to understand it fully, we must go back to the voyagers who risked everything to find this place. Nearly 2,000 years ago, before compasses, before charts, Polynesian navigators launched their great canoes into the vast Pacific. They had no maps to rely on, no written words to guide them, only the night sky, the shifting winds, the swell of waves, and the migration of birds. These were not aimless drifters. They were master astronomers, reading the heavens as if they were books, memorizing the rise of constellations and the path of the sun. Their knowledge was carved not into stone, but into memory, passed from one generation to the next in chants, stories, and the living practice of navigation. Imagine the courage it demanded. Families setting out across open waters, not knowing when land would appear, yet believing with absolute faith that the ocean itself would reveal the way. They carried seeds, animals, and traditions, not merely to survive, but to build a new life on whatever distant islands awaited them. And then, after weeks upon weeks of uncertainty, the volcanic peaks of new islands rose from the horizon. Lush valleys, fertile soil, fresh water. The voyagers had reached a place unlike any they had known before. But for them, discovery was not just about survival. It was about connection. They had not simply found new land. They had found a reflection of something older, something carried within them. A memory of origin, of homeland. And in that sacred recognition, a name began to take shape. To the Polynesian voyagers, these islands were not nameless, empty land. They were a continuation of something deeper, a thread stretching back to their ancestral homeland. In their traditions, there is a place spoken of across the Pacific, a word carried in chants and myths: Hawaii. Hawaii was more than geography. It was the spiritual homeland, the source of life, the point from which their ancestors set sail into the unknown. Some believed it to be a real island, lost to time. Others understood it as a sacred origin, existing partly in memory and partly in myth. When the voyagers first stepped onto the volcanic soil of these new islands, they recognized something that stirred that memory. Towering mountains, fertile valleys, and the vast ocean surrounding them. It all echoed the spirit of Hawaii. And so, the name lived on, reshaped by the tongue of this new land, becoming Hawaii. This was not coincidence, it was continuity. By giving these islands the name Hawaii, the voyagers declared that they were not simply settlers of a new world. They were keepers of an ancient identity, ensuring that their homeland, whether real or remembered, would never be lost to time. But in naming the islands Hawaii, they also gave it layers of meaning far beyond a mere label. For them, Hawaii was not just a word. It was a living embodiment of ancestry, of spirit, of the divine. And to understand why that name mattered so deeply, we must look closer at what Hawaii truly meant in their world. For the Polynesians who named these islands, Hawaii was never just a sound carried on the wind. It was a name layered with sacred meaning, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. In their language, Hawaii has been understood in many ways. Some have linked it to place of the gods, others to homeland, or ancestral origin. But beyond translation, its power rested in what it represented. To speak the name was to affirm identity, to honor ancestors, to recognize the divine presence within the land itself. The islands were not seen as possessions, but as living beings. Mountains and valleys were guardians. The ocean was both pathway and provider. Even the volcanic fire that shaped the islands was not destruction, but creation, a force of gods still alive beneath the earth. So when the voyagers named this land Hawaii, they were not simply labeling it. They were acknowledging it as sacred space, as a continuation of the world their ancestors had carried in memory and myth. The name bound people to land, past to present, and humanity to the divine. But names are not immune to change. As centuries passed, new eyes would fall upon these islands. Eyes that did not hear the chants, or feel the sacred meaning within the word. To them, Hawaii would become something else entirely. In 1778, the silence of the Pacific was broken by unfamiliar sails on the horizon. Captain James Cook, the British explorer, had arrived. To the outside world, this moment marked the discovery of Hawaii. But to the people of these islands, it was the beginning of a profound transformation, one that would alter their name, their land, and their destiny. Cook's men recorded the islands as Owaihi, a foreign rendering of the word they heard from the native tongue. The sound of Hawaii, a sacred name carried across generations, was suddenly reshaped by outsiders into ink on maps, spreading across Europe and the wider world. With contact came more than new spellings. It brought diseases that devastated native populations, traders who reshaped the economy, and missionaries who sought to redefine belief itself. The islands that had once been known only as a homeland of voyagers were now drawn into the orbit of global powers. By the 19th century, Hawaii became a kingdom recognized by the world, yet constantly pressured by colonial interests. Western influence altered governance, commerce, and even culture. And though the people still called their home Hawaii, the meaning of that name was increasingly contested, caught between its ancestral roots and the ambitions of empires. Eventually, Hawaii would be annexed, its sovereignty dissolved, and its identity reframed within a nation far larger than the islands themselves. But even as political tides shifted, the name endured. Because Hawaii was never just a word, it was memory, homeland, and spirit, powerful enough to survive colonization and still carry meaning into a new era. An era in which the name Hawaii would no longer belong only to voyagers or to kingdoms, but would stand as the identity of America's 50th state. On August 21, 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the United States, a moment that symbolized both celebration and loss. For many Americans, it was seen as the final star on the flag, the farthest reach of the nation across the Pacific. But for the native Hawaiian people, it was also a reminder that their kingdom, once independent and sovereign, had been taken from them long before statehood was granted. Yet the name Hawaii endured, carrying far more than its new political designation. Unlike any other U.S. state, Hawaii exists in two official languages, English and Hawaiian. That alone is a testament to the resilience of its identity, ensuring that the word is spoken in the tongue of its ancestors as well as in the language of the wider world. Today, Hawaii is known globally as a place of beauty, tourism, and culture. But beneath the postcards and the beaches lies something deeper. The name itself is a living reminder of Polynesian voyagers who first gave it meaning, of a kingdom that once stood independent, and of a people who continue to preserve their traditions, chants, and stories against the tides of history. In schools, children still learn the Hawaiian language. In ceremonies, the old chants are still sung. And across the islands, the spirit of aloha, a concept far richer than any translation, reminds the world that Hawaii's name is not a relic of the past, but a voice still alive in the present. For Hawaii, legacy is not only about its place on a flag or its role in America's story. Its legacy is the endurance of a name that has carried meanings across oceans, centuries, and empires, and still stands as a bridge between memory and identity. And when we reflect on that endurance, we begin to see why the name Hawaii is more than history. It is a journey still unfolding. The story of Hawaii is not a tale locked in the past. It is a name that continues to sail forward, carried by every voice that speaks it, every chant that preserves it, and every heart that remembers its origin. From the voyagers who first crossed the Pacific guided only by stars, to the generations who endured colonization, to the present-day revival of language and culture, Hawaii has proven to be more than a word. It is resilience made audible. It is history given breath. It is identity refusing to be erased. A name that once connected distant ancestors to their mythical homeland still connects millions today to a sense of belonging, whether they were born on the islands or simply touched by its spirit. And that is the extraordinary truth. Names can outlast empires, survive conquest, and carry meaning across centuries. Hawaii reminds us that a name is never just letters on a map. It is memory, faith, and defiance woven into sound. It is proof that the human spirit, like the ocean itself, cannot be contained. And as we honor the story of Hawaii, we are reminded that every state in America carries a name with a hidden history. Some born from ancient tongues, others carved by colonial hands, each one carrying voices that still echo if we listen closely enough. Which is why this journey doesn't end here. It continues, with the next name, the next story, the next hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. If the story of Hawaii moved you, if it made you see how a single name can hold centuries of memory, survival, and spirit, then know this. Every state in America carries a story just as powerful, waiting to be heard. The names on our maps are not accidents. They are inheritances. Gifts from ancient languages, marks left by empires, echoes of peoples whose voices still shape the present. Some are stories of honor. Others are stories of loss. But all of them are stories worth remembering. This series is about unlocking those hidden truths. About looking past the surface and uncovering the voices that history tried to bury. And just like Hawaii, each name reveals more than geography, it reveals identity. So, if you believe these stories deserve to live on, join us. Subscribe, share, and be part of this journey as we trace the origins of every state, one name at a time. Because names are never just words. They are legacies. And together, we will uncover them all.